loneliness, silence, anxiety. Too many men are carrying it alone. I'm Jack Starr, powerlifter, personal trainer, aerialist, and ex private investigator. And this is The Other Side of Tough. We're rewriting manhood one conversation at a time. And today is our therapy episode. And before I introduce these lovely professionals here, I'm just going to make clear a couple things. One is that we're going to respect the confidentiality of all their clients. So we're not going to be discussing any personal information about their clients. And we're going to be speaking based on their general experience, not on any particular thing going on with their clients, because trust is such an important thing with therapy. And especially if we want to encourage more people to seek therapy, we must first establish that there is that trust there. So I just wanted to make that clear. And what we'll do is we'll go around clockwise right now for the introduction. So Derek, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell me, what you do, how you got into therapy, and about how many years you've been doing that. And then Nassim, will go to you, and I'll ask you the same question.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack, for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The name is Derek. I am a MFT and also a certified and licensed substance use counselor here in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. I am the senior supervisor of an outpatient center. I help manage 2 centers in Los Angeles. Therapy, what can I say? Going into the psyche has been somewhat of a weird, odd pleasure of mine ever since I was a kid. If I can say, I was that rugrat odd one playing with the kids, summer vacation, 8, 9 years old with all the kids in the neighborhood. And once the lights went out, everybody went home. But no, I grabbed all the kids to come to my house and play therapy after playing football. Like, come on, guys, my mom will cook dinner. Let's go play therapy in the backyard. They're like, okay, we're getting a free dinner. Let's do this. So I am one who knew that, therapists were always like superheroes to me. And once I really kind of jumped into the field and knew what this meant, it was definitely a calling and a purpose. Started off with substance use. And, I'll be honest, I definitely know when it comes to the psychological part of going in, it wasn't really substance use I'm looking to continue. It's more of the internal, the root. And, yeah.
How many years have you been in this profession, in this field?
Altogether, yeah. When it started with counseling, I've been almost hitting a decade. It's about 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 9 years. And I've been an MFT. That one's a short one. You know what I mean? That one's, about a year and a half. So
that's fantastic.
When you still a baby therapist. Yeah.
That's amazing, Derek. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time to give your expertise, because this is very important. Nassim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us, how you got in the field, and, how long you've been in the field, and your inspiration.
Sure, thank you. It's nice to meet you, Derek. And that was one of the coolest things, actually, I think I've ever heard, is that you were playing therapy as a kid. Like, that's awesome.
My question about that, Derek, is did you also do the parents of the kids? Did you also do therapy with the parents of the kids? Because that would have been interesting.
No, but I told them how to manage their parents. I tried to. So I got in trouble. I got in trouble every now and then. My mom got a few phone calls. My mom got some calls because my friends were going home with some outrageous hocus pocus in their eyes type of interventions. But you had to start at some age.
I love it. It's like we're cops and robbers. We're playing tag, and Derek's playing therapy. I think that is so cool. I did not play thrapy as a kid, but I do remember as a kid, like, really loving, like, psychology, like thrillers, like, why does someone do something? Why would they do that? Where did that come from? And I would also always ask myself, like, if I had a thought or a feeling, I would be like, where did that come from? Why am I feeling this? What is this about? And I would do that also, like, if someone in my family had a response, I would be like, what is that? Where is that coming from? So I was always asking those questions. And then sort of as I got older, I kind of went to pursue acting, but more from a place of like, I think emotional access and curiosity and emotional expression. And from there, I also had a therapist that I worked with. It was a very corrective experience, that made me want to also do this too. Like that I could also be of help. I understand this now. I get this now. And yeah, I thought I could do that as well. So I went back to school. I was older. It was like sort of later in life, in my 30s. And then, yeah, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist also. And I've been in private practice for, let's see, 7 years. Been private practice for 7 years. And then I see everything. I see kids, I see adolescents, adults, and couples, families. So I kind of run the gamut.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the episodes that I've been looking forward the most to doing, because therapy has played such a important role in my healing process. I think therapy really got me to a place where I could regulate my emotions a lot better. And there's actually a study that showed that that there is a 49% improvement in emotional regulation with men who are in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to men who aren't in therapy. And that brings me to my question is, do you think there's a stigma for men to seek therapy? And if there is, how can we encourage more men to go to therapy? Nassim, I'll start with you since I started with Derek with the introductions before.
Sure. Yeah, I for sure think there's a stigma, like I think there's a stigma for men and women. And then I think just doubly down, amplify that, I think, for men. But I think the stigma for therapy is absolutely real. It dawns like through decades and decades of like, we used to call ailments of the mind alien, and we used to, like do like all this electroshock therapy. Like it was something that was like, oh, like they're crazy, and so it started, and it sticks like that. People go to therapy when there's something wrong. And oh, you're in therapy, that means there's something wrong. And I think we're starting to a little bit move to this more like it's a point of pride, like, oh, are you in therapy? People want to know, are you in therapy? Are you working on yourself? I mean, sometimes that can also kind of go a little too far in one direction, but I think it's getting better. But yeah, for sure, it's like words like broken, wrong, something wrong with me, right? Like those kinds of things all get attached to it. I try as much as possible in my practice to say, you go to the gym for your body. Like you keep your body strong, you keep your body healthy, right? You go to the gym, you take care of it, you exercise. It's the same thing for your mind and your feelings, right? Like take care of it, exercise them, like look at them. It's okay to work them out. It's okay to be curious about them.
I think that's such a good point, Nassim, because I was thinking today, in comparison for like what I do to what you both do in therapy, is that you help people do things the right way. And with lifting, like I think with men it's like, oh, we have this emotional thing that's going on, and we can work on it alone, we can take care of it alone. But sometimes we don't have the facilities to do that. We don't have the expertise to do that. And that's like with, me with personal training, I see a lot of people working out wrong. And all it is doing is compounding the issue until they learn how to properly exercise. And I think that's what therapy offers, is not an answer, not a fix, not a band-aid, not like, anything. It offers you how to like properly go ahead and process those emotions.
Yeah.
But in your experience, Nassim,
Mm.
do you think there's a disparity with men and women going to therapy? Do you have more women clients, or is it about 50-50?
Oh yeah, no. Let me see my adults. I think it definitely veers towards women. I have a good amount of men, I do, but I think it tips a little bit towards women. I think it's where men aren't a societally or a family of origin. They're not like encouraged to access their emotions, emotional expression, right? It's toughen up, it's crybaby stuff, like all of that stuff starts when we're really young, and we learn quick,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm gonna lose my I'm gonna lose my attachment. I'm gonna lose my, this bond is important. If they're disappointed in me, if I'm doing it in a way that they don't approve of, right? Like, we're gonna lose that. And so they learn quick to shut it off and shut it down. Yeah, so anyways, in my practice, I have both, and encourage that feelings are normal. They're part of all of us, right? Like, we don't stop ourselves from laughing if we find something funny, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we don't want to stop ourselves from crying if something hurts.
Yeah. That's excellent. That's excellent. Derek, do you need me to reiterate the question, or?
Yes. No,
Yes.
no.
Okay.
I do want to.
Let me
Yes,
reiterate it.
that's me wanting to jump at this, because I want to definitely piggyback almost on everything that Nassim said.
Okay.
First off, even if we start with the roots, yes, most of us do know that psychology and psychotherapy was created by white men, in the past, but now in the field, in modern age, like the world of psychology and the world of therapy is run by women, not run by women, no, but it is heavily, you know what I mean?
Dominant,
Yes. And there's a reason for that, obviously, because there is that stigma that lies within, men really doing what we do, or either as a client or in the profession. And that can be so many factors. It can be a cultural factor, the machismo factor, all that stuff really, pulls lead on that. For example, like vulnerability. Vulnerability itself has a stigma term to it. To be vulnerable is to be able to ask for help. And within a cultural realm, that's not really the masculine way, or the way to kind of, portray yourself as a man. And it's just something that has been brought down generation to generation. So, like, for example, with my male clients, we have had to work, for me, even a couple months until we really started tapping into the root. Slowly peeling off the layers, peeling off the stigma, the stigma layers, and then we're starting to get into some stuff. Versus, other clients is just off the bat, they just get, they go at it. And I've noticed the pattern. And like I said, that's a huge factor, just stemming from, it could be cultural, and it could just be what is taught nature.
Absolutely. And that is such a good point. That's such great insight there, because that's what I experienced with a lot of men. When I started, from an early age, like, whenever I went to therapy, it was always, what's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? But if you go to the gym, it's like, oh, that's great. You're doing self-improvement. Oh, that's awesome. Or, like, let's say if you go seek help financially, like you go do a financial assistance program to, like, get better at, paying your credit cards or whatever. And people will be like, that's great. You're taking financial responsibility. But when, it's about your mental health and you're saying, I'm going to see therapy, they're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you sad? So many people have it so much worse than you. Like, people in Syria are starving and dying. What do you have to be depressed about? And it's like, it's always that comparison, right? And it's like, well, that doesn't take away my pain. That doesn't take away my sadness that other people are suffering more than me. I think that's horrible. And I am grateful that I don't have to experience what they're going through, but that doesn't take away the fact that I still feel pain, or, those feelings of sadness and depression. So I think that's like
right. Like like those people aren't saying, we're not saying like I have it worse, like mine is
Mhm.
so much worse than that. We're just saying I'm
Yeah.
struggling too in my own way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't make it any less significant because
No.
it's your life, you
Right.
know, and it's your
Yeah.
life, what you're responsible for. And another cultural thing that I find with men, a lot of them say, you know, oh, the ideal is stoicism. And they think that stoicism is actually not feeling and pushing feelings away. But that's not what stoicism is at all. Stoicism is saying, look at what you can control and take action on that. But things that you have no control, don't put energy towards that. And instead of hiding emotional emotions, is about processing emotions and
Hmm.
taking wise action, you know, separating your emotions from your action, or processing your emotions maturely enough before you take action.
Right. So you're saying that like men have misunderstood the concept of stoicism as being a cutoff when
Yeah.
really it's a regulatory thing that you're talking about, that
Yeah.
you process it so it doesn't overpower you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
you know,
it's having the autonomy to actually experience feelings, even the uneasy feelings,
Right.
and understanding eventually, they will ease.
Right.
That uncomfortability needs to be felt in order to start feeling some authentic comfortness within
Right.
any untroubling feelings, as opposed to just running the other way.
Right.
That is most people's norm. And
Right.
especially when these uncomfortable feelings come in, and then it's time to really kind of question yourself, that you need to challenge them. There's this inner defeat that comes in. And
Mhm.
once that defeat is really kind of just played in your head again,
and a shame.
that's where it can really kind of make that merry-go-round of chaotic and confusedness
Yeah.
just live.
Right. I try to liken it
Survival
to
mode.
holding a hot potato is an example that I use. Like
Okay.
just hold it. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's hard. Just hold it a little longer, right? If you can tolerate the discomfort of that
Mhm.
uncomfortable feeling just before you throw it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just that knee jerk, we throw it. Or like you said, Derek, just run, right? Like that. If we can just hold it a little longer every time, we start to widen our ability to tolerate that discomfort.
It's the courage to be able to feel uncomfortable feelings, or even feel feelings you've never felt for the first time. That's
Right.
what a lot of people that I start seeing, and just in general, whether it's recovery, substance use, or emotional recovery, that
Yeah.
they've never really been challenged to do.
Yeah.
And that is why there's an emotional relapse again and again. You have, when it comes to clients, you have your complainers, you have your customers, and you have your visitors. Your
Mhm.
visitors come and go because they just, there's something in them that just won't surrender, so to say. Then yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you said, Derek, about there being courage to it, because linked with vulnerability, especially in man space,
Mhm.
there's
That's a bad word sometimes with men. That's the
Vulnerability.
no word.
men's
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
vulnerable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, vulnerable. Yeah, it's vulnerable is linked or equal to weakness, when in actuality, men are so weak these days, and there is a crisis in masculinity because we're not able to have that vulnerability,
Yeah.
the bravery to be vulnerable enough, and we're hiding our vulnerabilities, and it's actually emotionally stunting us
Yeah.
as men. And that's why you see a lot of police say the most dangerous call they get is domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of there's such an uprising in things like domestic violence, is because there's a bunch of weak men who don't know how to regulate their emotions, who don't know how to be vulnerable with these things that they have faced in their life, instead of processing them responsibility and doing the brave thing and going deep into that, like, shadow work, as Jung would call it.
Yeah.
They go ahead and they run away from it, like
Yeah.
both of you said. And there's no growth in that, and all it is emotionally stunting them, and it leads to these crime epidemics like violence, and that sort of thing. And me personally, I suffer depression and anger. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that I've learned in through therapy is that therapy doesn't get rid of my depression, doesn't get rid of my anger, but what it does is it lets me live healthily knowing these things and realizing, the cues to when my anger comes up and how to regulate it and things to do to like take myself out of those situations and to find calmer situations.
Yeah.
How to manage them in a way. In other words, how to manage them
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
healthy way. You were speaking of the crisis in masculinity, if I may, Jack.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
You know what I mean? Spiritually speaking, if I may, go on a spiritual rant, but spiritually speaking, the crisis in masculinity isn't the collapse of men or masculinity itself. You know what I mean? It is seeing the lack of authenticity and, forgetting of the self.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It is forgetting of who we are authentically. You know what I mean? Because many of us have learned, many of us have learned how to perform roles shaped by societal norms, expectations, survival scripts, but few were taught how to look inward. You know what I mean? A lot of us were, we weren't taught how to look inward or how to ask for help or look, beneath those social roles that we were played in.
Yeah.
Nassim, Derek was touching upon that it takes a lot harder work to get to a man to, you have to break up those stereotypes and you have to break up those cultural barriers. Do you find that also in your work that you have not a harder time, but it takes more time to really get into the source of men compared to women when it comes to, these deep emotional issues?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the person. It always depends on the person. It depends on how ready they arrive, right? Like, but yeah, I think it's like, it's this thing where it's a different, like, socio-cultural construct that men have to live under than women do, right? We're so allowed to cry. We're so allowed to, it's normal, right? But because of the way that we view this, emotionality with men, right? That it doesn't, it's not met in the world in the same way, and so they learn to not, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets calcified, I think, with shame, right? It gets calcified in this way where if I am this, then I'm less than. If I show this, then I'm less than, then I'm not good enough, or I'm bad, right? Like if I'm emotionally expressive, or if I have a need, right? I'm the provider. I'm the one who meets the needs, right? I'm not the one who needs. And so they cut off from these things, right? Or they can, like, I mean, I hate talking in absolutes and, the umbrella generalization, but that's what we're talking about here, right? Like, so it calcifies with this shame, right? And then it does get hard, like it's a bit of a harder knot to untangle.
Yeah.
100%. If I may, like, let's look at the opposite spectrum for women, and then we can move on. But for women, for example, my thesis was on assertiveness versus aggression, especially in women. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you this: when a female, whether she's a boss, whether she's a trainer, when she's being assertive, what is she looked at as being?
Oh, a bitch.
BITCH. Excuse my language.
No, yeah.
It's just it's the opposite effect right there.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the same. You're saying it's the same thing in reverse. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally.
Great.
She's not allowed to be hardened, right? Or she's not allowed to have that thing, and he's not allowed to be, tender or softer, or, Yeah.
And I mean, I think like, economically based that, now that women are now being shared breadwinners in households, or, a lot of times they're supporting their own household. A lot of times they're supporting a whole household, roles have changed. And I think I think that will be a good thing for men seeking therapy, because it'll break down some of those unfair stereotypes. Like, I think there are really good male and female stereotypes, like men being protectors, being nurturers. Those are some positive masculine traits. And, women being, empathetic, caring, those are great feminine traits. So I think that, as we evolve as a society, I hope to see that, there's less of a disparity between men seeking therapy and working these things out, because it really is having a deleterious effect on just society in general.
Yeah.
Just broken men doing broken things. And, it's really the next generation that suffers from that because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
trauma is being passed down. And I'm sure that both of you have like dealt with that with your clients, is breaking these cycles of trauma, and they're so easy to continue. Like your body wants to continue them because that's all when you're raised in those environments.
Yeah.
For sure. Changing the topic a little bit to something a little bit more depressing, I think you guys a commercial. And
Yes.
yeah, in the commercial, it was two friends, and I'm going to explain the commercial real quick, and then we'll get into it, because it was really powerful for me, because it really, I think, shows the face of what real depression is. But there's two friends, and they're showing like a montage of them going to these soccer or football games, they call them in Europe. And they're two fans, and they're wearing their jerseys, and one guy has his team scarf, and they're going, and the guy with the team scarf is like trying to encourage his friend, lighten it up. He's like being the smile, he's joking around. The other guy's kind of sullen, but he's like happy there to be there with his friend. And they're they're showing up to these games. And then, I think like the block on the commercial, the lettering on the commercial says is like, you never know the signs until it happens. And then you see the seat empty with the guy that was happy, jolly with a scarf. And you see his friend sitting next to the empty seat with a scarf. And, the message is that that person took his life, and you never saw it. And that brings me to my next question. Do you think this is an accurate description of depression? And, as professionals, are there signs of, someone being suicidal or, going to do self-harm? Are there things that we can look out for in those people that are laughing, seem happy? Because in my personal experience, I've seen that too. It's like the people who end up, committing suicide, it's like you never thought they would do it. They were always happy, or at least that's what they presented. We'll start with Derek. Let's start with you, and then we'll go to Nassim.
Yeah, definitely I want to start off by saying in disclosure, that's a case-to-case basis, but it is a known fact that, Nassim, you could probably, correct me on this. It is known that, people that are very much in that phase of that ideation, their euphoria is like skyrocketing. They have this euphoria that's up there because you ask for any symptoms or any signs, definitely, and then look at the isolation, look at the change of behavior. Definitely some concerning signs to look at. But can you reiterate the question though? What exactly?
I think you answered it pretty well. But I was just going to say, is that an accurate, representation of depression? Is that, sometimes it can be someone who's like happy, and, you gave some signs of, what is this person who might potentially be at risk of self-harm?
One thing that I do want to, point out is I was at a conference a couple months ago, and studies have shown that people that tried to take their life and they made it through were interviewed, and it's like 99.9% when they attempted, they regretted it right away.
Wow.
They regretted it right away. Yeah. So definitely, those signs need to be monitored, need to be looked at, especially if there's past attempts, because if there was a past attempt, there will be another one. There will be ongoing until that, that person starts seeking that treatment. You can't, yeah. Nassim, I'll let you take it,
Yeah. I mean, it can look like that, and when you say, is that an accurate reflection? Like, I think it can. I think it can look all kinds of different ways, What I thought was interesting about that commercial is, like, obviously it's a little bit of a, what do you call it? Like a twist, right? Like they're showing the one guy who he just seems really sad. He's down. His body language is this like way. and the other friend is the one who's cheering and celebrating, and he's so engaged and he's so, and so by the end, when you see that the one who was so, happy was the one who's gone, it's that twist, right? Like, it doesn't always look like what you think it looks like. But what I thought was so interesting about that, is the idea that, like, there's such an opening, right? Like, if that person who was struggling, like, kind of would talk about their struggling. I mean, I know they're at a sporting event, but that's such an opportunity, right? Like, to say, like, I'm struggling. Do you ever feel like this? I'm feeling lonely, or I'm feeling this. Like, that's a real opening to start a dialogue and normalize it between men, right? Like, to say to another man, like, this is really hard. Like, I'm having a hard time. Like, do you ever feel like this? Right. So you see the one guy who's struggling, and you're just like, just talk to each other, guys, right? Like, normalize it for each other, And
I think there's, like, I look at my own life, and I see so many, like, opportunities, that I could just, like, tell someone, and be like, hey, how are you doing? Just a quick check-in, even just be like, how are you doing? Like, and then oh, I'm good. I'm like, no, but, like, really, like, is everything okay with you? Sometimes it just takes that, like, second, because, like, that's the immediate response is like, everything's great. But when you, like, go into it a little bit more, like, people are a little bit more open to, like, start giving you
it's like permission, right? We can go, oh, you're okay. Like, you can handle that. We can go here, right? Like, you open the door, and, the idea is, with consistency, with, over time, that it can be built, that safety, that emotional safety, that understanding of this person, I think, might get it, right? Like, can be built over time. Just to piggyback off of what Derek was saying in terms of signs, right? Like, you're referring to that, euphoria or whatever. I think they often tell us too that, like, the time to be most aware with an individual who has had suicidal ideation or attempts is if they get on medication, that there's a point at which the depression, they're out of it enough to have agency, right? Like, that and that's, like, the most dangerous time, because when we're severely depressed, we just don't even have the will to execute a plan, right? So that this idea of, to be very aware that if we're starting to come out of something, that we might need to have our antennas up a little bit more, because we start to feel well enough to complete something, right? And so that's really important to remember.
Right. And I never even thought of that, because you always like the person being at their lowest when they're doing it, but you actually need energy to, like, do something so impactful.
Right, like a will. You need the will to even execute that, right? And so,
like a motivation,
right. So the most dangerous time is when we actually start to feel a little bit better. To be mindful of that, and then, signs is like, being really emotional, like, you've been such a great friend to me, or such a great friend to me, or giving things away, like, I want you to have this, right? Like, stuff like that.
But Jack, what you were saying earlier, when it comes to the dialogue between friends or just between loved ones, it is a known fact that when people are in that mindset of that ideation and they are processing a potential plan, when checked in on by somebody that they love or they trust, they will say something. They will. It is a known fact. So ongoing checking in, especially if you have that loved one that has somewhat past ideations or current ideations, and they seem stable. Just like, Nassim said, once that stability really kicks in, that's when this wakes up again. And usually this is going to that place of thinking, how can I execute this plan? But ongoing checking in, it is a known fact that people will speak up. People will disclose what's going on within them. Even though everything on the surface is, seems somewhat stable, but internally it is known that they want to be asked. They need to let it out.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
a lot of survivors of, the loved ones of those who have passed due to taking their own life, a lot of them do say that they didn't ask enough. Everything looked fine, so they didn't dig. They didn't really dig in. But if only, the bargaining part, if only I could have, but it is a known fact that, most people that are in that mindset or it's brewing in there, they will speak up when asked.
Right. I would assume because they feel like they matter, right? The whole point in some ways is they don't feel connected or belonging, and so if someone is consistently checking in, then they start to feel like, oh, I matter to this person. I'm important.
Yeah. And it's, it is said that it's usually not about not wanting to live when it comes to people in that ideation. It is about the pain is way too much to continue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are checked in and they are felt that they are mattered, that kind of lessens it right there. It's not that they don't want to survive or they don't want to exist. It's the pain is way too hard. So that's why when it comes to any type of masculinity, you know what I mean? When it comes to expressing oneself on that vulnerability, oh no, that piles on another layer of defeat, another layer of shame, plus the pain. And
and I think it's so poignant what you said, Derek, because that's exactly what I went through. I mean, I'm very open that I went on my path for therapy because I had suicidal ideations. And it wasn't because I was sad. It wasn't because, like it woe is me. It was things got so much pressure and it was so overwhelming emotionally. And I felt pushed in a corner and I felt that there was no other option. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
I can't live like this. Like, this is, like, I can't. And that's the thought that goes in your mind. It's always going to be like this. There's always going to be this overwhelming pressure. And I can't continue on like this.
Right. And there's no other way out. Like, that's the only way out.
Way out is to, like, end it. And I think that's so important to mention, is that, like, people that reach that point, it's not because they're not getting enough attention or they're boohoo depressed. It's because of the immense amount of pressure, and also they're not able to regulate all these emotions pouring in or ever been taught to.
Right.
For example, and we can move on, look at I was at a Linkin Park concert not too long ago.
Okay.
That reminds me of Chester Bennington.
Yeah.
Look, the most beautiful man, the most, physically and emotionally, which is great.
Amazing talent.
Yeah, and he had it all. And he was kind and caring, and people loved him. But Chris Cornell, I've seen a couple because I studied, like, wow, why? How could they? They had it all and they were nice people. But I've seen interviews of their loved ones and people in their circle. Almost all of them, we had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we never really meant to ask. We never asked what was going on with them, like, so they weren't really checked up on within that realm.
Yeah.
That's a hard one, because if there are no signs, technically, you don't really dive in. Yeah. But also it's that masculinity part. It's, no, it's good. But still, we need to check in with our loved ones. Even when stuff is good or when stuff's a little rocky or that overpressure, like Jack with you had a lot going on. Yeah. And I'm sure there's maybe some sort of a change of behavior within you. And hopefully, you had loved ones that can check in with you. I'm sure if you did, you let it out and you were able to express what's going on, and that probably, guided you to the therapy that you started doing. But
and like, one thing that I realized then is that there are going to be times that it's overwhelming, but it's not every day. You know, I think it does let up. And like, I think that's an important thing to, like, tell people too, is that, you will feel overwhelmed. Yeah, some days will be way too much for you to handle, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be every day.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I call them cognitive overloads. Cognitive overloads. They're part of our life. Nassim, I know the caseload. I know you feel that.
Yeah. All storms pass, right? Like, they all do eventually pass. But just and kind of back to the commercial, is like that let's not assume, right? Like, just because it looks okay, that it is okay.
Yeah.
So what does it hurt to ask, or what does it hurt to open up and create an invitation, right? Like, there's no harm in it, right? Like, I guess let's just not assume that because it looks a certain way that it is a certain way.
Exactly.
I think one thing that I drew from it too is that the people that you find like cheering you on and cheering you up in your life, we figure that they're bountiful with this energy, with this care, with this, love, compassion, but you may not realize that maybe they're giving that to you because that's something that they need themselves,
Mhm.
so it's a
Right.
reflection
Yeah.
of what they need. And a lot of times we don't check in on those people because we think they got it together. They're like, oh, they're always cheering me up, so they must have their stuff all together. But a lot of times those people are, taking it, they don't know how to love themselves. So they reflect that in their love for other people. So, you know, prioritize, you know,
Right.
checking in on those people that you think that are emotionally
Right.
good, and as
Right.
much as you check in the people that you may see the signs
Right. Right.
from.
You're
That's
saying
good
that
insight.
those people who are doing that are often doing that because that's what they would want someone to do for them, and so they show up in the world that way. So use that as a bit of a tip, right? Like if
Yeah.
they're pouring out and giving, then
Hmm.
maybe that's because that's the way they would want to be related to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good insight. Yes.
So that brings me to, this is the holidays are approaching, and a lot of people dealing with depression, loneliness, people that deal with divorce, especially like if they have had divorce recently and their families are, kind of split up.
Mhm.
Um, these feelings are emphasized by, seeing people together, seeing people with their families, seeing people, happy, jolly. And so it really, it amplifies, that what traditionally they think that they should have during the holidays, right? This warm atmosphere of people caring for you and stuff. But for a lot of men, it's not that way. A lot of men are lonely. As a therapist or professional, how would you recommend someone who's dealing with this kind of loneliness during the holidays, especially, to deal with this extra strength? Are there things that they should avoid? Nassim, I'll start with you.
Wait, so sorry, say that again. Like, what kinds of things during the holidays should people who are
So, like,
feeling
if
this
you had
lone?
a client, right, and they were, suffering, maybe they got recently divorced, and
Hmm.
they're alone. They don't have many friends because probably they're mutual friends.
They split up.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so they don't really have many people to reach out to. They're feeling depressed. The holidays are coming, and it's like a very hard time, especially for someone dealing with loneliness, seeing people together, seeing people happiness. A lot of people get engaged during the holidays, and that sort of.
Mm.
So it's maybe it's opening up old wounds, and that sort of thing. What do you like? What do you tell them to get through this period of time? And yeah, what kind of things should they avoid?
Should they avoid?
Like,
I mean, I often say things just, the holidays are not the holidays. If someone's feeling like really isolated or really, I often suggest like, volunteering somewhere, like giving, sort of giving back. And the holidays is such a great time, right? There are shelters that need help, or, things that you can do to, that sometimes when we give, it zooms the lens out a little bit so we don't collapse into um, our own suffering, our own pain, and also we get to be with people and community and other people who are helping, distributing food or things like that. Like I think I recommend that often. Like, have you thought about like would you be interested in, like, and sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it's an avenue to like be like, you can be with people, you can be of service, you can help, contribute, and it makes us feel worth something, right?
yeah,
Like I'm doing it can build a little bit of that sense of like mattering, right? Like when I'm helping somebody else, I'm making a difference, right? And that can lift us. So that's sometimes something that I throw out.
that's amazing. I didn't want to even think of that, and that's like a great idea because I know that, you know, through volunteering, it's helped me a lot too, you know, feel my importance and presence in the world, that, you know, you can make a difference.
Sure, or animal shelter, or like even an animal shelter, right? Like to be with animals and feeling like you're doing something and you're helping, like volunteering there too. Like it doesn't have to be with people if you feel it like that's a little bit too exposed in some way, you know? Yeah.
And you get to be by cute animals, so that's
Totally. I mean, that's never, it's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
All right, Derek, go ahead. Tell us, if you had a client, you know, how to tell them to deal with, you know, this particular tough time in the holidays, you know, for them.
Oh yeah, going through that now. A couple.
Okay.
But I love Nassim. I you know, it sounds like what you're doing is you're initiating and encouraging for them to create a sense of purpose. And that'll just build up that self-value, that self-esteem is how we value ourselves. And it'll just, it'll wake something up within some type of joy within the season, which could be hard for a lot of people, not just our clients, just people in general, you know. You know, we're human beings, and human beings are built for connection. We're built for connection, whether you want to admit it or not, you know. I love to go to my 5 factors with my clients and even myself. So, and I'll explain what those are. You know, sometimes there's just no motivation. There is no kind of umph to get up or get out because they are just derailed by the heartache or the loneliness. But we need to start with the root, the foundation, and the root is within themselves to grow that inner strength. And what I like to express to my clients is, let's go back to the 5 factors. Your spiritual wellness. What are your values? What are your morals? What are your beliefs? You know they're in there. Let's bring them out. What are they? Your social wellness. How you interact to some extent with people in your social setting, whether it's at the gym, whether it's at work. It's time to start ramping up your social skills to an extent. Not even skills, but your social, you know, the way you interact out there. Your intellectual wellness. How you're retaining information. How you're accepting information that you know benefits you, or just information that gives you entertainment. Your physical wellness, how you're moving your body, because whether you believe it or not, this and this is connected. Physical, spiritual, social, intellectual, and your emotional wellness. How you're retaining information. How you're accepting new information that comes in, and how you're reacting towards what's going on with you. And what I've noticed that does, it really kind of gets them moving, and it gets them knowing that, wait, I'm here for a reason. I have this one life to live, and I'm given the opportunity to really examine and assess myself. Wait, this is pretty freaking empowering. Hold on. I only need myself to do this. I don't need others to do this. And stuff will start stabilizing itself. It wakes it up. I've noticed that to a few of my clients for the last few years who are just at that ground zero place, starting fresh, you know, not even fresh, but starting at, you know, ground zero, moving up. So we focus on those 5 wellnesses, those 5 factors, and it's really kind of initiated certain new criteria or factors in the way they value themselves and the way they see themselves. And
well, I think also too, Derek, what you're saying is important, because I think when you're in that place, you feel so untethered, like you feel so adrift. And so when you break it down the way you break it down, you're giving them there's a structure, right? There's something in here that's giving them a roadmap, right? To be like, okay, I can tackle this and I can tackle this. And instead of just feeling like you're floating off, like, you know, there's nothing tethering you to the ground, right? When you're starting over or from ground zero. And so the way you're approaching it and describing it, it's giving someone a sense of like, okay, like now I can look at this and I can look at this, and that there's a comfort in structure when all we feel is chaos, right?
Yeah.
So it's so great. Yeah.
And there's obviously a sense of structure in them because they're coming to see us for a reason. They know, even I remind them the strength and the courage they have to even set foot in a room with me. You got a lot of courage to be in a room with me. Number one, no, I'm just kidding. You know, it takes a lot of courage to be with an hour with me. But no, but it just
because I train you.
There you go.
Totally, right.
You know, Derek, it does such a like great. I love these 5 things, because it was actually funny, because I was bringing that up to you, Nassim, the other day while I was training you. Like,
Yeah.
I've, I first I started working on my physical,
Right. Yeah.
I spent like a year, like trying to get my body in shape, and like, I'm going to like discipline the eating. I'm going to start working hard and doing that sort of thing. And then I was like, oh no, I have like these emotional things that I had, emotional chaos. And, I was like, okay, I'm going to like, go to therapy. I'm going to start really tackling this. Like I tackled my weightlifting and tackled, getting my body ready. And then recently I was like, my finances are a mess. And you know what? I'm going to really lock in this year and get like financially, disciplined and work on that aspect. And so I think that's so important, is to, breaking it down, into these like type of pillars, these things in life, because if you don't break it down one by one, it does seem like this overwhelming like, thing. It's like, how do I do all of this?
Right.
That's some really great insight. I like to, end each episode by saying something that I appreciate about each guest I have on. And I'll start with you, Derek. One thing that I've always appreciated with you is the of energy and positivity that you have. And I think that it's so great that you're a therapist and that you're able to funnel that like just energy and positivity. And I can see like how you shine a light and help so many people in their lives, because so many people that are low energy or that have been depleted throughout their lives, they need that. And so I think it's so great that you're in this field and doing what you do. And then Nassim, Nassim, one thing that I, really appreciate about you is, a lot of people, they say they're like empaths or they're empathetic, but you really do care and listen to what people say. And I always feel, emotionally, paid attention to whenever I'm with you. Like a lot of people, they'll say niceties and they'll just like brush it off and be like, well, let me tell you about my thing. But no, you really like delve in. You ask those secondary questions. You really care about the emotional well-being of people around you. And I can also see how that is such, so beneficial to the clients you have. And I could see how so many people trust you and are able to open up to you because you do genuinely care, and you genuinely really take people's emotions seriously. So thank you for doing that. Thank you both for being friends, because I've really benefited from both of you with your energy and with your empathy.
Thank you. That was a little difficult to tolerate, but I get it. Thank you.
I get it. I mean, I think we've like gained a lot of great things from this episode, especially with like the male crisis. And one thing that I've been able to ascertain throughout doing these interviews and build upon is that I think the number one problem, I always ask this to people, but I'm going to answer it today, at least in my opinion. I think the number one challenge that men face in modern society is emotional regulation. And you see it in our leadership, you see it in crime, you see it in how households are falling apart, you see it in the destructive patterns that are repeating themselves over and over again. And it adds a lot of stress to both men and women, right? Because women have to deal with these broken individuals, and a lot of times they're victimized by it. So with that being said, as it pertains to the male loneliness crisis and that sort of thing, I think one important thing that we have gained is seeking help. It's not weakness to seek help. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is actually the sign of strength, because like Derek, it's being brave. It's being brave in the face of, you know, what people may think of you. But when you lose that and you become authentically yourself with the vulnerabilities, and you're able to show that to people proudly, that's strength right there. And that shows that
Sure.
you've done enough emotional work that you're able to, you know, stabilize yourself, and you don't need the appreciation from any other people.
I want to say
Go ahead.
one thing. Sorry about that
I was
loneliness.
gonna say, I was just
Oh,
like end with all of you, like just giving what you think,
uh-huh.
you know, could be beneficial for men and that sort of thing. But go ahead,
Oh,
Nassim.
okay. Well, what I wanted to say about what you said about loneliness is like the part that is so, I feel like, important to pull apart is, and it goes with, I think Jarek said earlier, and you did
Yeah.
too, like this authenticity concept that we're sort of touching on, is the idea that loneliness, it's, we can be with people and still
Mhm.
feel really lonely. That
Yeah.
loneliness and
Mhm.
aloneness are not the same thing, right?
So glad you made
Right, so that idea of that loneliness is really the absence of a felt belonging, right? That we don't feel like we belong anywhere, that we're that connection, right? And so if someone isn't authentically themselves, then it's going to be difficult to have that sense of belonging, right? Because who is the person that's showing up if you're performing, or you're, you know, pretending to be okay, or whatever that is, right? Like, if you're not authentically showing up as what is happening inside, then your connection is based on something that isn't embodied, right? It's not your actual experience, and then you will be with people, but you will feel lonely, right? Because you're not being understood or gotten, but you're also not showing up as that self, right? So just, it's a two-factor process, right? So that we want to
Yeah.
make it safe for someone to be their authentic self, and then that person has to make that choice and that commitment to access more of their authenticity, so that that belonging can take root, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here,
So,
here.
yeah.
Thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
just want to end on my part, if I may, Jack.
Yeah, please.
Look, we've been talking about masculinity, and it's just, you know, there's so many spectrums, but, you know, I feel that masculinity, you know, it can become healthy again when it's rooted in awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, when a man knows who he is, why he acts the way he acts, and how his strength can serve as something larger than his ego, that is the beginning, you know, that is the beginning realm right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I appreciate all of your all your professional insight, and I encourage every man, you know, if you're going through something, like, you know, if you have trouble, if you have trouble losing weight, you're going to go to you know, a personal trainer to get knowledge, to get help. If you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, especially during the holidays, there are so many resources for therapists, and if you don't like one, you can just go to the next one. Find
Yeah,
Yes.
you.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
You know, don't
Yes.
stuck with, and you know, not all therapists operate in the same realm, you know, and that's important to know too. So find one that meshes with you. Find one that you feel, like Nassim was saying, that you can open up and feel safe,
Yeah.
opening up with and being your authentic self. And you know, the second thing that I really want to emphasize, especially during the holidays, is check in on everyone. You know what I'm saying? Even the people that you
Please.
are strong, check in on everyone. And men, like, you know, when you ask your boy, or your you know, whoever you're with, you know, hanging out, and you're like, hey man, how you doing? And they say okay, ask them a second, you know, ask them again, be like,
Yeah.
how are you really doing? And see
Tell me
where
about
And
that.
and then
that
and you can say, because I'm having a hard time, right? So,
Mhm.
like, are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm struggling, right? Like, make it okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to end at. And I really appreciate both of you for
Thank
taking the time
you.
during the holidays and stuff. I know it can be a little bit crazy. But I will definitely have both of you on again, because, you know,
Yes.
I think that part of a man's healing journey is going to therapy and
Yeah.
emotionally regulating yourselves. So again, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to
Ew.
sign off here. Both are excellent people. So with that, that's it for today's episode of The Other Side of Tough. I'm Jack Starr, reminding you that real strength is found on the other side. Catch you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.